Okay, so we are honored to have with us today one of the most influential executives of the telecom arena, Mr. Matt Bross, the CTO of British Telecom. Matt and his team in BT have close ties with the Israeli industry, come here often, and have close relationships also with quite a few, large number of Israeli startups. British Telecom is one of the leading and larger telecom vendors, telecom players in the world, and Matt is responsible for setting the BT Group technology, strategy, and the vision and direction of innovation across BT. Matt is the leading force behind BT's multi-billion-pound 21st century network transformation and is leading innovation for BT. Matt has also served on the board of many companies providing strategic, technology, and business leadership. He is active in several worldwide commissions, such as the Global Information Infrastructure Commission, the Alliance for Telecommunication Industry Solutions, and is the chairman of the board of advisors for the Global Innovation Research Center. Only 3 weeks ago, Matt received and was made a fellow in the Cambridge University. So please welcome together with me, Matt Bross.
I can do that. Actually, I think I can handle this. Hey, how you guys doing? All right. You know, you can tell there's some kind of like co-processor bolted on to everybody in here because all the slides are in English and all the talk is in Hebrew, and I'm like, anyway. Next to me, Gary's saying, "Did you understand that?" And I was like, "Every word." Oh yeah, every word. Hey, so it really is a pleasure to get to come speak to you this afternoon. It's kind of ugly, isn't it? Oh, well, I'm no slave to fashion. You can probably tell I got sneakers on. I had the opportunity to get to address a lot of groups, and my wife was out with some of her lady friends, and I told her that I was coming here and didn't speak at Tel Aviv University. I mean, that's kind of cool. And one of her lady friends said to her, "Did you ever imagine that your husband would be talking at all these events, crazy stuff all around the world?" And Janice, we were married like 26 years. And she took like a second and said, "No." And her friend said, "What's that about?" She said, "My husband never figured into my wildest dreams." Anyway. So, no, in her wildest dreams, she was never imagining me being here. Okay. A couple other things about me, just to level set. And I often am heard as saying that I have one of the coolest jobs on the planet, which I think is really a function of are you having fun what you're doing. It's not necessarily that job from everybody else's perspective. But one of the things about getting to serve BT as the Chief Technology Officer, and I never tell people I am, because it is like one of the coolest honors I ever imagined in my life. I grew up milking cows on a farm in the middle of America, 9 brothers and sisters. I don't have a degree in actually anything. And so the fellowship at Cambridge was like, I was sure somebody was going to like pinch me, and I was going to wake up and say, "Oh shit, this is a dream." Anyway, that hasn't happened yet. But with all this virtual reality stuff and the Truman Show, I'm wondering about that. But I've got to do a lot of cool stuff. I got to start my own company after a bunch of years of engineering in MasterCard and some other companies, and then I sold that. I left there and started my own company, so I did the startup thing, and I sold it for bunches of millions of bucks. It was really cool in '97. And then I got to invest like in Google at 47 cents a share and some other really even cooler shit, because it's like when your money's making money. And so the reason for saying that is I get to do this because I want to, not because I have to. And that is a really, really fun thing. It's also necessary because a big company like BT, you can thump your head against the wall, and it can be really, really difficult to try and drive innovation. And so what I wanted to do, actually I'd rather not use any slides, but you always get this kind of stuff like here talking about slides. What I'd really like to do is just share with you some thoughts, and I might use some slides if you don't mind, about that journey and about the global innovation platform. How do you change it from a global MPLS network, and how do you unleash innovation beyond the boundaries of the payroll of your organization, and how do you really start benefiting from cloud-based wisdom, and how does that end up doing what I really have a passion about, and it's driving innovation at the speed of life, not at the speed of technology. I would argue that we have a lot of technology, and I can see we're going to get a whole bunch more right here very soon with Evergreen and the minds in this room. But it's, I got a test for people. How many people have heard the word convergence today? Okay. Have you had your convergence test today? No, you haven't. Okay. Well, it's university. It's appropriate to have a test. Here's our convergence test. I want you to raise. I've done this on literally 10,000 people. I want you to raise your right hand. Well, everybody's done their deodorant. If you have voicemail on a mobile device, okay, now keep that up. I want you to raise keep it up there. Come on. Aerobic, think of it as, raise your left hand if you have voicemail in an office somewhere. Looking ever so converged. Look, raise your left leg. Raise your left leg if you have voicemail in a home, voice messaging, in a home somewhere. Okay. Now the next one is a hell of a lot more difficult. I want you to raise your other leg if you have voicemail on more than one mobile device, in more than one home, or more than one office somewhere in the world. Okay, yeah, okay. We have some honest people here. Actually, if you answered yes to the last question, I suggest counseling. But what's happening here is, I think, the opposite of convergence. And the challenge of driving innovation at the speed of light. Let me tell you what we just demonstrated. We demonstrated innovation in the mobile profit and loss statement (P&L), in the residential P&L, and in the business P&L, but not in the person, right? Because is it a technology issue that we can't converge something as simple as voicemail and log on to our lives? Is that a technology issue? No. It's that companies like ours, and I mean fully calling the coordinates. We are not and have not done innovation at the speed of light. We've done it at the speed of the P&L. And I would argue that in this time space going forward, I guess we do get to spend a lot of time addressing people. And most recently in Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum, where I got spent some time with Yossi Vardy and with Simone Perez and a whole bunch of other amazing world leaders. We had the discussion around the shifting power equation. It's a big question right now. And is it moving from west to east? Is power moving from the public equity into private equity? Where's the shifting power equation? Is it from public policy outwards? And I think the debate's over that the power shifted to the people. Okay? And if you look at that just a second, if you think about the power shift to the people, what does that mean in terms of what we're doing in our business and building a global innovation platform? Well, it means a lot. Because if we continue to innovate in the platforms but not in the person, in our personal lives, our professional lives, and in business, we'll become increasingly irrelevant. Okay, and look at what's the confirmation that power is shifting to people. Just a couple of quick examples. By the way, brevity is not my strong point. So, and I guess that's a good thing if you're speaking to people. But Google, eBay, and Facebook. Everybody likes to talk about them. They get used in many ways as an example. But in eBay is the greatness of eBay in the computing, the algorithms, the networks, or is it kind of in the rubbish that we sell, right? That we contribute and sell. In Google, is it the computing, the network, the algorithms, or is it the questions that we contribute? The questions we ask. Is the value? In Facebook, is it the computing, the network, the algorithms, or is it the Facebook? Right? And so just a little bit. In this, I actually have a slide on this, which I should probably do it then. But in this period that we're in right now, you can see where there's massive consolidation of the power of the people. But we're starting to talk about crowd-based wisdom, and we're talking about social sigma and all the social environments. So you're starting to see the power move to the people actually, as opposed to just talking about it. So if we continue to drive innovation at the speed of technology as opposed to at the speed of light, we're I think, in dire trouble. And the challenge, when I brought this out, everybody was like, whoa, what the heck is that? It's one of my kids' toys. I get it. I think if you were like a math student, I think it's called a trapezoidal icosacodecahetron. But don't quote me on that. What I argue is that it's anything but convergence going on. But there's an innovation big bang going on. Okay? And that this is my little effort to try and explain what I think is happening. This little sphere has a radius of 1.5 inches here at the center. And if these represent the radii of that sphere, and they're the technologies that we're talking about, whether it's dense wave division multiplexing, whether it's quantum cryptography, or nanotechnologies, or storage, or wireless, or the many different technologies that we're dealing with, we as kind of corporal beings can deal with arithmetic things like 10 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, which you rarely reach if you live in London, or 50 bushels an acre, 60 bushels an acre. But on the outside, you can get that computing is improving at 10x, and storage is improving at 10x. Okay, wireless spectral efficiencies are improving. We can kind of get that. But what I think is missed on us, and what is the real challenge out there, is that as these technologies are increasing at 10x, what you have is now this sphere of innovation possibilities has increased just one order of magnitude, 10x. But there's 100,000% volumetric increase in what I think are the innovation possibilities that are birthed out of that one set of 10x improvements in the underlying technology. And what that means, if you're trying to drive innovation at the speed of light, you better come up with ways that you are going to look across this sphere of innovation possibilities. You have to. Does anybody have a crystal ball? I guess I could use it for that too. A crystal ball on what customers want. No, not most of the time. Do they often know what they want? No, but they'll know good when they see it. Right? So the challenge to drive innovation at the speed of light. We talk always about convergence. I think for us, it's being able to, as an operator, and trying to do things not in the P&L, but that matter to people. Is that this is really a challenge. And the next couple of slides I'm going to use will describe how we're attacking that challenge and some of the things we're doing about it. And then Mike, I think, is going to talk a little later about, do I click up here or do you?
Use the space bar.
Let's use a space bar. I'm qualified to do that, actually. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. Mike's actually going to talk a little later about some of the specifics of the companies that we're working with here and around the world and the global scouting and how we're actually driving innovation at the speed of light. But let me say that if you're going to make the investments, the $18 billion program that I had the opportunity to take to our board, you want to do something more than say you're doing cool technology. So the plan was, how do we deploy this $18 billion in such a way that we could actually enhance the quality of life and the success of organizations that choose to do business with us? How could you actually ensure there wasn't a gap between what's possible and what you deliver into the markets that you choose to serve? Well, if you're going to do that, and the innovation big bang has happened, and the innovation gene is out of the bottle globally, you damn well need to look at changing the way that you do innovation in your company. So let's, you guys have all taken speed reading. I'm sure there's our forward-looking statements. If you don't mind, I'm going to do something like tie my shoe before I break my neck. At least we got the right side on the camera there. The backdrop that I think pressurizes everything going on in the innovation space that we play in globally is globalization. You've got complex regulatory environments that all of our customers, as individuals, as businesses face. Whether you're in a multiplayer gaming environment, you release some personal details. In some country, you go to prison for life. In other places, if you don't have enough details about who you're playing, who wants to play? Let alone the financial or the pharmaceutical regulatory environment globally, very complex. Customer expectations of digital instant gratification really are the whole notion. If you're in a corporate customer, their expectations are moving from where they can take their non-working capital and move it into working capital. Huge customer expectations that they have the best globally, not just the best locally any longer. Technological change, I think from what I could tell by some of the slides, everybody here probably has a sense of the unprecedented rate of underlying technological change. M&A activity through 2007, over $4 trillion worth of M&A going on. In our business, for BT, this is not really understood. Most people think of us as the UK phone company, but less than like 9% of our revenues come from residential switch minutes, and a huge amount, like $40 billion of new contracts from in the last 3 years from global transactions. And more money is made from divesting assets than it is actually when you're buying assets. So helping companies in this globalization do M&A, and the economic uncertainty with the energy costs, with the subprime challenges, with the confidence issues in management, these kind of things are representative of the space that we're innovating in. Sustainability and social responsibility, I think, and pretty excitedly so, for the first time on the global debate, corporations are starting to understand that corporate social responsibility and sustainability aren't actually in conflict with commercial success. It came untied again, did it? You're like, your eye, it was like, I know my shoes aren't that cool, so it must have. I'll tie this thing. And then we already talked about convergence, but this sets up, this kind of pressure cooker of what's going on globally. And I talked about the power moving to the people. Well, as part of the work with the World Economic Forum, we have this view on some what we call the digital ecosystem and some scenarios that might emerge. One, the Uverse, where you see all of us connected in a kind of a peer-to-peer or social way. In this future, there's high level of global stability. The power that moves even further to the people, and you have a tremendous amount of innovation coming out of people in the area of middle kingdoms, which I think these might represent the kind of companies that I just talked about, where they've consolidated the power of people. There's regional global stability, but not fully. And I think we're probably in this type of area right now. And then, but you also see a lot of protectionism, in the U.S., which you might be able to tell by my accent. I'm not actually British. Bloody hell, I can do. But have lived in the UK for 5 years, and I've passed my life in the UK test. But you see a lot of protectionistic behaviors coming. So these kind of scenarios are also shaping the digital ecosystem that we're going to be innovating in and trying to drive solutions that are relevant to the people's lives. I'm going to actually not do our consistent strategy, but what I am going to say is that we've been through a series of transformations inside of our company. It's not like one transformation. We've seen where we had to move from a 100-year history of narrowband into a broadband future. And that's really begun to unleash the creativity of artists and scientists and engineers in ways that had never happened. We moved from a telco into an ICT, I said earlier, where less than 9% of our revenues are from residential switched minutes, to a last 3 years, a $40 billion book of business for global network IT services. It's a real transformation in our business. We operate in about 160 countries around the world, 167, I think, in terms. So this is a real change for us as a business. Operational separation. If you go on a micro level in the United Kingdom, where we're the incumbent operator, we did something that I think was the first on planet Earth, where we created a separation from the first mile, not last mile, because you've got to look at it from the customer perspective, the first mile, physical conduit and copper assets, to where those have been essentially put in a separate operating unit called OpenReach. And there are over 600 licensed operators in the UK that have equivalent access in the network, IT, and entire process of connecting to those. And what it's doing is it's causing a kind of a cool system for innovation. There's a lot of choice coming in because these what were bottlenecked assets are now in the hands of a lot of innovative people. And if BT, for one, is going to continue to be relevant in the lives of customers, we've got to get busy and get innovation out there. So that's a real transformation, and we're actually starting to see it ripple through. Then building a global 21st century network. Infrastructures don't move on the same time cycles as customer needs, right? I mean, it's kind of a really simple statement to make, but it's very important to understand historically that these infrastructures simply can't move on the same time cycles as customer needs, and so we have to build them very differently than we have in the past. Hit a little bit on that. And then probably the thing that underpins our transformation the most is from closed to open. And I think that's opening up a lot of opportunities for the companies in this room, for the companies around the world. Michael extend that discussion a little bit. But the notion of moving from closed to open innovation, let me just give you a real quick example. In the patent portfolio, the silicon germanium structure was one of the fundamental patents inside of BT. It was a very, now, we were not into building fabs. We were not into even the devices. We weren't, but in the day, we would have taken from the patents on different polymers and drawn the material sciences and built the fiber. We would have taken the underlying structures and built the devices, if not the systems. Okay, so there was a day when it was very closed innovation, very integrated, and with the innovation genie out of the bottle globally, how we collaborate is changed completely. And I think the survival and the innovations we need, we saw, 6 companies this morning, and the innovations that we saw from those 6 companies, they were all below the hurdle rate of almost any investment that we would make to bring a new product to market inside of BT. Almost every one of them, in the sum total of investment made in them today, is below the hurdle rate of what would have made an investment case. However, almost every one of them matters hugely in the lives or experience of the customers, or could potentially matter. So moving from closed to open to where we're actually taking those and bringing them in. I have a number where we've, in the last 2 years, brought over 20 companies under 50 million in revenue into BT. Now, that may not sound very impressive if you're in a startup or emerging company, but when you would dance with what was proverbially called the 800-pound gorilla, historically, you had to be another 800-pound gorilla to survive it, getting crushed dancing with us. In the open innovation models, this has really changed dramatically. So what is this shift that I'm talking about? Open innovation, I describe it as our organization's capability to harness innovation wherever it takes place globally, bring it back and fuse it together with the best of the men and women inside of our organization and get it in front of customers fast so they can vote with their wallet. Because again, I don't think we have a crystal ball on this. But at the same time, the end goal is to drive financial results, okay, to drive financial performance. And so this notion that if you're going to drive long-term, sustainable, and differentiable shareholder value. How about if I walk down here just a minute? Is this microphone working, or am I talking loud enough? Kind of cue in. I'm putting a double knot in it. Right? For those of you who have kids, it won't happen. The idea here is if you're going to try and drive long-term, sustainable, differentiable shareholder value, how often, historically, it's I get a new product in the marketplace. How quickly are new products cloned in the marketplace today? Faster and faster and faster, right? Even with strong IPRs, it's unfortunate. So this doesn't lead to long-term, sustainable, differentiable shareholder value. But if you imagine just a second that you invent the most brilliant thing in the world, but you implement it poorly, it's pretty worthless, isn't it? You implement it flawlessly, but you operate it pathetically. You wreck value. You operate it pristinely, but say you productize it in an ill-conceived way. You haven't harnessed the benefit out of that invention. Say you do all of those things really well, but your channels are, how about tripping over their own shoelaces, right in front of the customer, which happens a lot. You're wrecking the value. You do this great, and we've signed that $40 billion book of business, but what if the people in organization aren't scaling to meet the opportunity that you harvested? The idea is that if you're going to do this, and I would argue most of the companies you'll be selling into, is you've got to innovate within each one of these and throughout this set of kind of the innovation chain reaction going. And to the point of open innovation, okay, the innovation genie's out of the bottle, and you have to do something that's very uncomfortable. You have to actually collaborate in ways that we've never done before. We've got to collaborate with customers. We've begun to bring our customers into the research programs that we do, into the very front end. I'm going to give you a $1 billion win from doing this. Okay, you expect BT being doing fiber stuff, right? Network company. Well, one of the researchers turned a fiber into a microphone, and a big transport organization in the UK that runs a lot of trains underground had a large tender out for communications infrastructure. Well, because we brought them into the front end of this microphone, fiber-based microphone, which we were using to trace fiber paths in our network so that we could guarantee diversity, they looked at that and they said, wow, what if we could listen to the trains going on the underground? I'll do it one more time for you. We could hear exactly where the track was dressed. And for 100 years, people have been running along with flashlights after the tracks shut down, looking for where they're dressed. Well, now we can listen to it. Well, actually, then that was what they thought initially. But with the copper commodities going through the roof, people are laying the big, thick DC power cables onto the track, having the trains cut them, rolling them up, and stealing the cable. Huge copper theft. They can now hear when that activity is going on along the track that isn't trains. They can also hear when the second set of wheels on their trains are noisy. It's going along. So what's happened is we found by innovating, bringing our customers in an open way, whereas before we'd have been embarrassed to say, well, we got this thing, but we don't really know what to do with it, because we're used to saying, here's exactly. We figured out the future, and we're going to tell you. Well, that's kind of like not validating. That was really long. Sorry about that. Universities. We've got about 30 universities that we collaborate with around the planet. I fund the research collaboration. I've got about 1,600 people that I think directly are leveraged by our research programs into solving problems in each one of these areas from the organizational design issues of scaling the business all the way down into the best practices here, working with government, and then as we're getting into commercializing the products, working more and more with our customers in terms of the suppliers, if you will. So the global innovation capabilities, we've taken and built from closed to open. We have people all around the planet turning over rocks on process innovations, systems, technology, software, optical, wireless, doesn't matter. Looking at what might actually be something that changes that. We've got a set of collaborative programs. India, we just launched a research center in Dubai, working with Eutelsat. I won't try that again, I just messed up. India, we put together a UK-IU collaboration with a whole series of funded PhDs, partnering with 22 different universities. The industry partners I hit on, and the research labs were over there. So changing it from closed to open. And then how does this change from closed to open? It ends up being an ecosystem, right? It ends up being a set of collaborations, which, by the way, I started out by saying open innovation is our organizational capability. It isn't yours or yours. This is really hard for us as an organization to get past the non-invented here. But we've come up with something I'd like to share with you, and this is a little orthogonal to the discussion, but we've come up with something that we think every customer that deals with us wants from us. That's really hard to actually net down to. And it's represented by these down at the very bottom, these blue arrows that fork through here. We think that there are 3 customer journeys and 2 measures of those journeys that are really, really important for all of our customers. And they're concept to market, lead to cash, and trouble to resolve. Let me hit them real quick. Whether you're a consumer, a SME, or a major business, that if you conceive something and you can see what you want, they want us to get that concept into the market. And the 2 measures are right the first time and in an ever shorter cycle time. The second one on lead to cash, if you have something in the quiver that people want, whether it's any service, they want it fast. So they want the lead to cash cycle shorter every time and right the first time, the 2 measures. Nobody wants trouble. But if there is trouble with any service, whether it's a consumer service, a SME service, or one of our major customers, they want it fixed right the first time and in a shorter cycle time. And so we've really started to drive from the lowest level of our infrastructure all the way through a set of processes that have simply 2 measures. The cycle time and right first time around us getting new concepts into the market fast. Our lead to cash cycles down. Once there is something they want, boom, you get it to them. And the trouble to resolve interval right the first time, or cycle time shorter and right the first time. And so when any time that I think Mike talks a little bit about selling into BT, I can tell you that our mentality is that costs will come out if we do it right the first time and in a shorter cycle time across these 3 journeys. Customer experience will go up. So when you're thinking about talking to a company like us and our peers around the world with innovation, I'd really suggest starting, maybe they don't have the same framework, but this, we think, is going to matter across all of our customer segments. Now, I've got how you talk about the infrastructure. We're putting in some networks, some systems. Here, we talk about capabilities. While nobody's got a crystal ball on what customers want, we know a lot about the ingredients that will make them up. We know that messaging and presence and content repurposing and digital rights management and storage and access technologies, they'll be kind of like the Lego building blocks, right, that make up those solutions. So we've moved from this building these vertical silos into an IT-led approach, where these capabilities, these Lego building blocks, with 5 kids, they spend a lot of time at Legoland, and they have I don't know if you ever thought about it this way, but they got an API on the bottom, that's the little holes. They got an API on the top. And out of those little building blocks, just a few of them, they've replicated all of the great structures of Western Europe. You go there, and it is really, really cool to go to Legoland. But the idea is that we can take these capabilities, put them together through a set of service creation and service orchestration tools, and any one of the ones that we've built, we've actually begun to publish open, put them out on the web, sdk.bt.com, through PHP, Ruby on Rails. You can download the SDK. You can take call flow for IVRs, take click to call, all of these things that we're doing now inside for our product people. We're actually starting to expose on the web, right? I think you got to unleash innovation. Then, eventually, we actually think that customers will want to configure their own services and products. We think that companies will probably want to assemble new services, and ultimately, if it isn't configurable or assemblable, then what you're going to want to do is to engineer some new. This is the SDK. I'm not going to belabor that, but what does this look like, kind of in a picture? Inside of our organization, I think I must be left-oriented because I always want to walk that way. It's not because you all are not nice folks. Look, you are kind of scary. It is. So the underlying network here is the communications infrastructure, the switching, the routing. Web 21C. I said we've got a set of reusable capabilities that we're building inside the company. Security, messaging, authentication, those Lego building blocks. But then we're also building a set of capabilities that allow us to take and mash up with third-party applications so we can build on the infrastructure and put new services out there. BT Fawn is another open. We've got, in the UK, we had like 3 million broadband subscribers in the retail business at BT. There's a lot more of that across all of them. But what we did is we said, look, that broadband hub is another access point for the public. And if you want to opt in, okay, we can open it up to the public as you're walking by. How am I doing on time? Should I? 5 minutes? Okay, thanks. If he was up here, he'd be... Anyway, these access points in the home, if you opt in, you can actually open it up to when people walking by on the street can get access to it. Or when kids come over and play, you don't have to let them in to your secure side. But this is something that we did by linking up our broadband hub, third-party applications with Fawn, and got it out into the marketplace. We've done this over and over again, and if you look at what's happened to BT, let me give you on this home hub thing. Before, we would have been really jammed. Talk or Carphone Warehouse, a very, very good, formidable competitor in the UK, came out with free broadband. Now that's tough. What's better than free? Well, they came up with total broadband, but total broadband wasn't all services from BT. There was a digital vault service that the global scouting team found out in San Jose. We did a mashup with it. Now, total broadband has grown from 24% to over 30% market share, very short time, against free. Because what we're doing, if you ever experience the loss of your machine and all your files go away, your pictures and stuff like that hurts, right? And so the ability to have open innovation and a platform like this allowed us to mash up services from other companies that built services and put them together with that of BT's men and women, put it in front of the customer fast, and it made a difference in the market. I'll give you one other example. We have BT Trade Space. There's about 300 in the UK. We were becoming increasingly irrelevant to the small to medium-sized enterprises. If you're running a small business, how many people here are running a small business? Okay, small startup. Okay? How long does it take you to figure out whether somebody is relevant to you or not? Very long? Like a femtosecond? Get out of my face. I don't need that. It is very obvious when you're running a small business and managing your finances. So what happened was there were a whole set of applications in Web 2.0 land that were getting developed that were relevant to these small and medium-sized enterprises, but they didn't have the technical prowess, that was easy for you to say, to look at them, to assess them, what have you. So what we did is we built up trade space. BT's got a lot of credibility. We can do those things. We landed them onto trade space. We've got like 60,000 small to medium-sized enterprises who believe they can trust our brand and trust our technology, but these are all services that were below the investment hurdle rate that we would have made ourselves. So the notion of looking around the planet, bringing it back together, the best innovations, fusing them with the men and women inside your organization, and getting them in front of the customer fast is starting to drive a set of successes in our business that is driving the financial performance. So ultimately, what I'm going to wrap up on this and say, how do you unleash innovation beyond the boundaries of the payroll of your organization? Right? Well, we've set a set of these Lego building blocks. We are looking at these customer journeys always around lead to cash, trouble to resolve, concept and market, and measuring the cycle time and the right first time. We've built up a set of product assemblies. We've exposed them to what I call a global universe of innovators. You know, that tomorrow there are tens of thousands of people in CSC, Accenture, HP, and so on and so forth who are going to show up and they're going to try and solve problems for clients. Well, if they can publish, if they can write to the SDK of BT, and they can solve and embed some kind of global security feature that we have, or some other call feature into the solution, our economies of scale on our platforms are increasing. The innovation is happening in ways that we never imagined, and the stickiness is pretty high. The flip side is, as we're putting in place products and services for this set of customers, our infrastructures are now fit for purpose to reach outside of the boundaries of our organization on ever shorter cycle times and pull in capabilities that are out in the web and bring those together and put them in front of customers fast. And ultimately, if you're going to drive innovation at the speed of life and try to ensure there's never a gap between what's possible and what you deliver into the markets that you choose to serve, you have to move from closed to open innovation. You have to move from where these infrastructures that could not possibly move on the time cycles of customer needs into an environment like this. And I think it creates a huge, rich treasure trove of problems to solve for the venture world, okay, for large companies alike. Because doing this is absolutely essential for the survival globally of companies with big checkbooks, okay? And it can matter in enhancing the quality of life. And with that, now you know everything that I know. So thank you. Yeah, gladly. Right here.
How do you manage with all these innovators into the web stuff? How do you around innovators?
Well, we don't manage all of them yet, and ultimately I'd rather not manage them. But today, when I had that constellation of services on the, kind of like with the Lego building blocks or the periodic table, every one of those were products that we did with customers. So today, through the software platform, we can start to get the services rendered pretty quickly. The real challenges today in taking anything out of the quiver of any of these companies is that I need to be able to put a service wrap around it at the same time, and I need to be able to put a commercial wrap around it at the same time. So the speed to being able to put services in the marketplace, let people vote, it is coming down, but the challenges are, as I get the technology to actually collaborate, where I can pull in a map, or I can pull in any kind of web-based, there's like 300 of them. Actually, there's enough stuff on our website you can look at it. But the real constraint is being able to back off a commercial agreement and a service wrap with wherever you're going out and getting the service from. Those are still very much let's meet and let's nail it down in business development. So some of the innovations need to be around automating that on both sides, so I can both technically bond with the capability as well as have a commercial wrap and a service wrap. So I would be remiss if I said we were doing it well with all of these players. That wasn't my intent. But we have done it well in many instances, and we can see now the challenges of reducing the cycle time and getting it right the first time ever more often. Yes, back here?
Innovation, sure you're doing a great job, and I totally agree. The problem we see with operators are in two areas. First, the time to market, going through all the technology people in the organization. Second is the supporting of the new services within the organization. So usually it takes you about a year and a half after you go into the innovation people to go and meet customers for the first time, and then you see that the operators are not supporting those services, not promoting them in any way. How are you going to handle those issues?
I think that, did everybody hear the question? Because let me just re-say the question, because I think it's a really, really good one. And that is that when you have this innovation, okay, and you want to bring it into an operator, even if we think it's really good, so put outside the envelope what we don't think is good, which could be right or wrong. It can still take a year. I think that's gracious. It can still take a year to articulate through the processes of the business. What are you doing to shorten that cycle time and get it right the first time more often? Did I get the question right?
This is the first question. Then the operators need to support it and marketing.
Yes. Okay.
This is the second issue.
Okay.
Usability is the second.
Okay. So let me be blunt first of all. A lot of stuff that is thought of is crap. Okay. And because it's in the minds of the people who invented it, it's the best stuff in the world. And if you started from no capability, it might look really interesting. But if you started from a capability where you were actually doing a lot of this stuff, it wouldn't look so good. So there's a huge frustration. Every time I go to a trade show or what have you, every exhibitor there knows how life on planet Earth would be better if only. So that's one reality. Now, the flip side, when it's really good, the global scouting team, the way I think of it, is they are going out and intravenously injecting innovation that we're finding in the marketplace into our channel. I'll get to point to in a second. In the 20 companies that we've done that with, they are small, emerging technology companies, most of them. And the ability to do that is an organizational capability where you got to get over the non-invented here. And I hope it becomes a strategic advantage for BP. I don't think that other companies are going to be able to do it as fast as we are. Because I think we started to have enough wins that are driving customer experience benefits and revenue into the company. The market share, on the digital vault stuff, when we put like 2 or 3 of these smaller company services around our hub, and we went from 24 to 31% market share, against a free offer. And we did it inside of, like, I think it was 4 months, not a year. Okay, these are commercial agreements, technical interconnect, the whole bit, inside of about 4 months. And you could then measure the market shift change. The same thing, if you would talk to Bill Murphy in our BT retail business, the small to medium-sized enterprise, he's landed, he's looked at about 300 applications, all of which were not done inside of BT. If he picks one, it is no more than 3 months from the time, if it doesn't get done in 3 months, then either it wasn't that important to us, or it was a cracked relationship on the other side. So you've got to have these wins inside the company. You have to have other business units look at it and say, "Man, how is he or she improving this thing in their business?" And then want some of that. That's getting the commercial pull-through. That started to happen. Now the support on the other side. I actually think in the future that in companies like BT, one of the things in the Web 2.0 landscape that we see, one of the strongest assets that we've got, we've looked at the network as one of the strongest assets. I actually think it's the customer base is the strongest in the channel and the ability to get to that. So if we could develop our capability to do that second half, which is support these and actually market them and drive them through the channel, I think it would create more shareholder value than a lot of the stuff we're busy about doing inside the business. This is kind of a strategy change. Because right now the strategy is our products and our services, and we get them in front of the customer. But I think in the future it will be the most relevant or the best in front of the customer using our economies of scale, our if you will, the credibility. BT's got a lot of credibility with our customers. And we actually do a lot of not nice things to our customers too, but just being real on that. So on the commercial side, right now in the small examples that are working, it's getting driven through the channel because these people are seeing 24 to 31% market share improvement. They're seeing the small to medium-sized enterprises sign up in like 60,000 return to BT. But we don't have a systematic way to do that right now. And in this environment, I don't think there's a cookbook on how to do it. There's probably a lot of innovation you guys should come up with to help us. I promise my next answer will be a whole lot shorter if you anybody dares to ask me questions. Good. Is that okay? Good. Right.
You were testing a system where there was a convergence in the mobile phone and the gateway was connected to the wireless going home.
So the question was around, and wrapped up now? I'll answer it. The question was around a product that we came up with called BT Fusion, where when you walked into your home with your mobile phone, it would roam to your broadband. This doesn't seem too avant-garde today for a lot of different reasons. It was quite amazing in the day. It didn't take off as a consumer product. It's very successful with our corporate customers as they travel around and they move off of the roaming charges and they move into the mobile into their offices around the world, and they can roll it up and be a VoIP call on a PBX and use either Wi-Fi, DPRS, Edge, or whatever kind of low-speed data for voice instead of using the mobile networks. That's taking off very well in the corporate side of things. We now call it Corporate Fusion. It was actually on the slide, so that was a shorter answer. Okay, you guys, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good luck and the best to all of you on your endeavors going forward.